Hello again. This is Michael from TOEFLresources.com, and today I am very happy to share with you another video about the speaking section of the TOEFL. Specifically, today I am going to talk about question type 6 in the speaking section, which is commonly referred to as the academic lecture question. As you can see, this is the 2017 edition of this video. The question itself hasn't really changed since last year, but I've learned a lot more about how to put together strong answers, and I've learned a lot more about which strategies work well for students, so I thought it would be a good opportunity to make a new version of the video. Now, I've chosen today as a practice question to work with something from the TOEFL Quick Prep collection. Specifically, this comes from volume 3 of the collection. It's the one about product quality. Now, I do recommend that you download the Quick Prep collection before we get started today, as following along with the transcript of the question will be useful to you, I think. It'll make it a little bit easier to understand the points I'm making here, and I think it will make it a more valuable video. Just note, however, if you don't have the collection, it's okay. I'm going to teach you some universal strategies which will work no matter what kind of question you have in front of you. So, with that out of the way, let's get started by understanding the question. As I always stress in these videos, ETS puts their questions together in a very formulaic way. If you understand how ETS designs these questions, you're going to have more confidence and you're going to have an easier time actually answering them. So there's 3 things I want you to remember about question type 6. First of all, understand that you are going to listen to a short lecture, couple minutes long, about an academic subject. Most common, according to my research, are lectures about biology, sociology, business, history, and art. Now, this isn't a guarantee, and maybe this isn't terribly useful, but these are the subjects which are most commonly discussed. So when you're practicing, make sure that your practice questions involve these. Secondly, within this lecture, the speaker is going to explore that topic, that subject, using 2 main examples or points. Sometimes it's 2 unique examples. Like if it's a lecture about a feature of animal biology, he'll have 2 different animals which have that feature. But sometimes they're not totally unique, and that's the case actually in the practice question. There's 2 separate things being discussed, but there's more of a connection. And I'm going to demonstrate that later in the video. But just understand that there's 2 main illustrations of the topic that are clear, first and second. No matter which type of lecture you get, it doesn't make a difference. You're going to answer the question using the same technique, which I'll talk about in a moment. And then finally, understand what you're supposed to do when you deliver your answer, which is you're going to answer a short question which involves summarizing the 2 points or examples from the lecture. Okay. Let's get started with our specific question. As you listen to that lecture, you need to take notes about it. The way you take these notes is the same, no matter what the question is actually about, no matter what the topic. If it's biology, if it's history, if it's business, you're taking notes the same way. And this is how you do it. Start by taking notes about the main topic of the lecture. And this is something which you'll hear at the beginning of the lecture. In this case, in today's practice question from the quick prep, the main topic was how people determine the quality of a product. If you've got the PDF in front of you, you can read the transcript. Basically, this is what it boils down to. That was the first note I took. Then I took notes about the examples or the points. In this case, I'm calling them points because they're connected. First, I noted broadly that she talks about reliability. And then I got as many details as I humanly could. You're not going to take perfect notes like this. I understand it. If you're answering this question, you might miss one of these. But this is the ideal. First, I noted reliability is how a product works without any repairs and it meets our expectations. No unexpected problems. I noted these days it is less important because manufacturing quality is high. For example, all cars are highly reliable. I'm not using full sentences, right? I'm using point form. This makes my notes a bit faster. Basically, these point form notes represent every single thing that the lecturer said when she was talking about reliability. After the lecturer finished talking about reliability, she talked about features. And that was my note, talks about features. And then I took notes about every single detail she mentioned about features. I noted that these are extra but unnecessary things that make a product easy to use or cool. For example, air conditioning or a sunroof in a car. This has replaced reliability as a main factor, so products have many features nowadays. Again, that's everything she said. And I'm going to talk a little bit later about why it's important to get as much as humanly possible and why it's important to use that in your answer. But before we get to that, let's talk about structure. Let's talk about how to take those notes and turn them into a proper answer to the Type 6 speaking question. If you've seen any of my videos, you know that I love structure and that I love templates for answers. In the same way that ETS uses the same structure to make their questions week after week after week, you can use the same structure to make your answers week after week after week. You might take the TOEFL 20 times. I hope not. Maybe you will. You're going to use the same structure 20 times for your answers. It works. I need you to memorize templates and structures if you want a good answer. I promise you they work, and I promise you you're not going to be punished for using a template that you found online. So what is the template for this particular type of speaking question? Well, it goes like this. The lecture is about. The professor illustrates this concept using two main examples. First, she talks about, she says that. Secondly, she speaks about, in her opinion. That's it. That's it. I think you can see where the notes fit into this template, right? Here is where you're going to put in the topic. Here's the first example, or the first point, and then the details. Second example, details. This works, I promise you, it works. It works every time. Let's see how this actually works with our practice question of the day. The specific question contained in the quick prep goes like this: using points and examples from the lecture, explain the two major factors of product quality and how their role in consumer decision making has changed. Here's what I came up with. I'm going to read this in a moment and I'm going to time it. Now, I understand that this is a pretty long answer. This represents an ideal. It represents a perfect answer. You might have to shorten it. You might not be able to come up with this much. You might speak slower than I do. In fact, I guarantee you speak slower than I do. Just shorten as necessary. Include less detail as necessary. Try your best to make it look just like this, but yeah, include a little bit less detail if you have to. All right, I'll take a drink of water and then I'm going to time this and we'll see how it turns out. Okay, here we are. The lecture is about how people determine the quality of a product. The professor illustrates this concept using two main examples. First, she talks about reliability. She says that people like products that work the way they expect without requiring repairs. People hate to experience unexpected problems with a product. These days, however, this is less important to consumers because manufacturing standards are so high. For example, most cars sold today are very reliable. Secondly, she speaks about features. In her opinion, this refers to the extra but unnecessary things that make a product easy or cool. They include, for example, air conditioning or a sunroof in a new car. Because products are so well manufactured, this has replaced reliability as the main determiner of quality. As a result, new products these days contain a great number of features. That came out to 57 seconds. So it's pretty ideal. I spoke about the topic of the lecture and the transitional phrase. That came out to about 8 seconds, I think. And I think I talked about this one, the first point, for about maybe 25 seconds, and this one for maybe about the same. Basically, ideal. Talk about this for 10 seconds. And talk about each point for about 25 seconds. Ideally. That is to say, balance it. The same amount of time for each of the two examples. Now, the type 6 questions can be kind of confusing and needlessly confusing. And the reason is that ETS tries to make the question really, really specific, as if you have to sort of contemplate and consider what the lecturer is saying. So you're going to read this and you're going to say, okay, I need to think about product quality and I need to analyze that and decide how product quality is changing over time. Well, no, not really. Basically, your job here is really, truly just to kind of repeat what the lecturer says as much as possible. There's no original thought going into this. There's no analysis going into this. No matter what is actually said here, all you're doing is repeating the two examples and the 2 points that the lecturer talks about. Don't worry about how this is phrased. Just worry about repeating the first example and all the details, and then the second example and all the details. That's why I mentioned in the note-taking part that you should be just taking as many notes as possible, because it's all pretty much relevant. Keep that in mind. I want to repeat, don't get confused by the question. You can almost basically ignore the phrasing of the question. I mean, don't do it, but pretty much you can almost ignore that. It almost doesn't matter. This is really just a listening and repeating exercise. I promise. Okay. I think I'm going to leave it at that, actually. That about covers part 6 of the speaking section of the TOEFL. If you want to find more guides to the test, I do encourage you to visit TOEFLresources.com, which is my main website. That contains guides to every single section of the test, as well as my essay and speaking evaluation service. Thank you again for watching all the way to the end of the video. As I always say, I love it when that happens. So congratulations to you. Good luck on your test, and stop by next week when I will have another new video available. Goodbye for now.